Oh, I'm sorry. It's not Monday.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, and we will go ahead and begin the call the meeting today to order of the Santa Barbara County Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission, and welcome those who are here with us this morning. Before we begin, I want to reiterate the message that was on the welcome slide. We recommend that you go to the language button there at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select the English language channel if that's the language you want to listen in, or the Spanish if you are preferring to hear this translated. So we do have translation available, and it works best if you choose one of those two language options.
The center column here shows you what it would look like on your computer. So it's typically at the bottom is that interpretation button, and then select English if you prefer English, or Spanish if you prefer Spanish. On the left, if you're using an iPad, you follow that, and if a smartphone, follow what's on the right.
Okay, we'll reference that again if we need to there. With that, we will call our meeting to order at 10 o'clock this morning and welcome the public who are joined us. Let's begin with a roll call.
Commissioner Trotsky.
Present.
Commissioner Twibell.
Present.
Commissioner McClintock.
Present.
Commissioner Turley.
Present.
Commissioner Bradley.
Present.
Commissioner Kasich.
Present.
Commissioner Bray.
Present.
Commissioner Ochoa.
Present.
Commissioner Rios. I don't see Commissioner Rios, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Adam. And I don't see Commissioner Adams, and Chair Morris.
Present.
And if you could help me, if either of the two show up, let me know. So I'll be in the middle of a presentation.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we really only have one agenda item this morning, and that is to conduct a public hearing to receive input from the community around the issue of communities of interest and recommendations around factors and characteristics they would like the commission to consider as the districts are formed or reformed later this fall. Before we turn to the members of the public and take comments, we are going to have our staff do a presentation to kind of get us all oriented and on the same page, and then we'll take input and public comment following that. So Ms. Tilton, you're up.
Thank you. To thank those who are participating today and those who are watching later, because we are recording our presentation, and we hope that you have others join in and at least watch the recording if they're not able to be here today. What is redistricting? Redistricting is something that is conducted every 10 years by all jurisdictions that hold their elections by district. In this case, we're talking the County Board of Supervisors. So the new election lines will determine where the members are placed in each supervisorial district, and only those voters within that district will be able to vote for the county supervisor. So we're asking you to get involved so you can share your unique point of view, your communities. We want to make sure that the communities are fairly represented by our diverse community. The way that this process lays out is we hold a series of public hearings and workshops and provide mapping tools. Our hope is that the public is able to use those tools and use those tools to help describe their communities and how they want to see the supervisorial districts drawn. We will also providing an analysis of the most recent census data and other data. So that will include the total population counts and also socioeconomic information of the different areas of the county. So most of you know the census data is delayed. We won't actually get numbers we can work with until August 16th, and then it's going to take the state of California about 4 to 6 weeks to adjust those numbers, so to reassign state incarcerated persons to their home addresses, and then we'll actually have the final numbers. We realize we can't wait until October for you to start drawing maps. So we will be providing what we think are some estimated total populations. So our hope is that the public is able to draw maps and then just make some minor tweaks for population balance so that each of their districts are equal. We plan to start reviewing maps on November 3rd. We are hoping all residents will help us draw and submit draft maps, and those mapping tools to start doing that will be hopefully available the 1st of July. You don't need to use one of our mapping tools. There are some public tools out. If you have a map, you just want to draw, if you have a county map, just draw lines and submit them. Any form works, but I think you'll find our tools helpful. And in 2018, the Santa Barbara County voters approved Measure G that formed the Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission. This is the commission that's hosting this meeting, and we'll be hosting all the meetings throughout the county, and then finally we'll be approving a map. And here are our commissioners. Janet, I think, should be back behind there. Yeah, sorry, Kevin. Blocked on my screen. I hope everyone can see it on theirs, depending where you have your gallery.
We can.
Good. So as I mentioned, we were having a series of community meetings. There'll be 14 in total. If we draw the maps and after we draw the maps. And then also the commission has engaged the services of Tripepi Smith to do a public engagement campaign. It includes Facebook, Twitter, what was the other? Oh, Instagram, all press releases, a new Facebook, a new website we'll be looking at. And of course, we want you to participate in whatever method is comfortable for you and get involved in drawing those initial maps. The deadline for the commission to adopt its final map is December 15th, and it will be this commission that adopts the map, not the County Board of Supervisors. There are rules for drawing the lines. The first is the federal law. So there must be reasonably equal population. We must use the census data. So we will be using the 2020 census data. There can be a slight deviation between the least populated district and the largest populated district, but it can only be, that variance can only be 10%. So we're trying to get them as equally populated as possible. We also need to follow the Federal Voting Rights Act in that lines can't be drawn in a way that would dilute the voting power of our protected class communities. And there can be no racial gerrymandering, meaning lines cannot be drawn for the sole purpose of race. It can be a consideration, predominant purpose in drawing a particular district. Section 2, the middle column here, this is state law and the requirements of Measure G combined. We must follow the California Voting Rights Act. And then we follow the state prioritized criteria, meaning each of the districts must be geographically contiguous. We must have undivided neighborhoods and communities of interest. We're going to talk in the next slide about what communities of interest are. Undivided cities and census dense places wherever practical. Cities whole, we keep other census designated places whole. Easily identifiable boundaries is typically following streets, freeways, railroads, waterways, just so you can help the citizens in understanding where the boundaries are. Compactness, we don't bypass one neighborhood to get to another neighborhood. And topography, geography, and cohesiveness. On the third side, after we've met all those prioritized criteria in the second column, we can look to other traditional redistricting principles, such as if we know there's an area with future population that is certain, we can possibly populate a particular district, but still within that 10% deviation. And then whenever possible, when we're assigning election years to these districts, we want to minimize the voters that are shifted to different election years. So if they reside, for example, in a district that is expecting to vote in 2022, we're hoping to keep the bulk of the voters in a district that is also up in 2022. And in addition, the commission is prohibited from considering the residence of any incumbent or political candidate when drawing the lines. And the districts cannot be drawn for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, a political candidate, or political party. When we're talking about communities of interest are areas, neighborhoods, and areas that share common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for the purposes of its fair and effective representation. So when you think of communities of interest, it's really overlapping sets of neighborhoods, networks, and groups that share common concerns. Some of those can be some interests can be schools, housing, community safety, transportation, health, land use, financial conditions. Others, some common social networks, including churches, homeowners, home associations, community centers, shared use of common spaces. If there's a community center where a particular group of people come together, we often hear sometimes neighborhoods are really tied to a certain shopping center or a certain store, and we hear that often. Other communities can be communities that share the same cultural identities, same language spoken at home, education levels, and we can also look at other boundaries, such as school district boundaries, fire district boundaries, other boundaries. So for these public hearings and these workshops, we want the community to define your neighborhood and really tell us what the geographic borders of the neighborhood are, because that's what we'll look to when we're drawing the maps, and the commission is trying to see if we've respected those particular communities of interest. And also look to and help us we want you to articulate what is the shared interest or what are the shared concerns that tie those communities together. It's really tell your community story. At these hearings, we're asking you to describe your community. You can also provide your input through the new website at drawsantabarbaracounty.org. Or we ask you better yet to even draw your community. It's not necessary that you draw all 5 districts of the entire county. You can just draw your own community. And you can verbally just tell us what communities should be kept together, or better yet, submit it in writing. Say if you think these 2 particular communities should fit together, we want to hear that. We're asking the members of the county to visit our website at drawsantabarbaracounty.org to come to one of our meetings. The website has the calendar and agenda on those meetings, and to forward any information you have about other organizations or community groups that we come speak to. And our email is redistricting@countyofsb.org. Part of the Fair Maps Act that guides redistricting calls for the county and the commission to reach out to groups, to do a concerted effort to reach out to groups, especially those that serve the minority language-based communities and the lower turnout communities. So we ask that please, if you have the name of a community-based organization that we should contact, there's a method for you to enter that. Look up, see if we already have them on our list, and if not, to please provide us that information on the website at drawsantabarbaracounty.org. Wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming mapping tools. We're really excited about them, and we are working with the Calipers, who's the major vendor, to try to get everything in place so that we hopefully have them up in early July. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you what County of Sacramento, we just launched all of their tools. The first thing we have to help in define communities of interest is our Santa Barbara County story map. I'm actually going to skip a demo of this because Dr. Phillips, who helped develop the story map for Santa Barbara County, is with us, and he will walk us through to use the story map to help identify particular communities of interest. We realized that, I wanted to show you this simple map review tool. Once we have maps that are submitted, we will be posting them on this map review tool. This is not a map drawing tool, but it's a tool that you can use when you're drawing the maps. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what Sacramento County's looks like. When you first go into this interactive review map, there's a pop-up that gives you instructions. It's definitely worth it to read those instructions. It's very simple. It works a lot like Google Maps. It's not difficult to follow. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I've activated the layers feature here, so it's showing me what maps we already have.
Shelley, FYI, I think we can only still see your PowerPoint screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's see. Thank you. How is that?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you for that. What you're seeing here is Sacramento County. I've activated the layers screen, and you can see these are the existing districts. These are the 2011 Board of Supervisor districts. One does the color, one does the outline. Those are the colors. You can actually type in an address. Oops. And you can see how you can zoom in very closely to us. That happened to be the City Hall in Galt, which is a small town in Sacramento County. I'm just clicking on the buttons left to zoom it out. Folks like to do this because if you're living right here and you want to see what district you're in, you can either, zoom in closely to see where those boundary lines are, or you can type in your address. Once we get maps, right now we're bringing up the existing map, but you could unclick the existing map and bring up a map that someone has submitted. The other good thing about this one is you can show, unclick this particular map, population units by table. So I can zoom in closely and see, okay, there's a particular population unit. It's very hard to see, I'm sure, on your screen. But here is what shows me the population of this particular area. And you'll see why that's useful when we're drawing the paper maps. We're not going to go into great detail, but wanted to make sure that you got a chance to see that particular tool. Let me go back to now the my PowerPoint here. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Then we have a simple paper drawing tool. So this paper map drawing tool is just what I showed you. We've divided it mostly by cities and by census designated places. So the lighter shaded area are the unincorporated census data place, and the darker ones are the cities. Again, this is for the city of the county of Sacramento, but this will be similar for Santa Barbara County. These numbers right here are the population counts. So folks who want to manually just take this paper kit and draw in a district, they can calculate the numbers by hand and get to 307,800, I think is the target for Sacramento. That's one way to do it. But it's actually, if you know Excel, there's a different way to do it, because there's an accompanying map that has them, instead of population counts in each of these areas, they're numbered consecutively 1 through 100, or however many there are. I think there's 112 or something like that in Sacramento. So what you would do is you would go to an Excel spreadsheet, and when we have more time at the workshops, when we're in person, I actually show you how you say, okay, my districts 1 through 30 are all in my district 1. And so you open the Excel spreadsheet and you enter a number 1 in numbers 1 through 30, and then it calculates the citizen voting age population for you. If you're interested in seeing all this, you can, and you don't want to wait until ours are live for the County of Santa Barbara, you can go to the County of Sacramento and use the tools. We also have a tool called District R, and District R is a simple tool that will allow you to select neighborhoods with a simple paintbrush. And if you're interested, I can show you that, or show you that now if there's later, if there's interest in doing that. We can get through the presentation, and if anyone has questions to actually see some of these, I can go back. We can revisit these and show you these demos. And then we have the calipers, which is a more powerful online mapping tool. And this is where you get more data. Once you draw your district, you're able to see even more information about more citizen voting age population by ethnicity and race, but you can also see some information and population counts and your deviations. There's a quick start guide for this, and both for District R. And now I think I will go to the website, and I'm going to probably have to switch screens so you can see. Let's see here. Are you able to see the website? Okay.
Yeah.
So on the we have our welcome page. It warms you up to the redistricting process, some background about the commission and how we got where we are, and then the calendar and agenda. I do want to announce that for July, we were originally following guidance and OSHA guidance and not having in-person meetings. Well, the good news is now we can in person, and so we are starting to line up rooms that will be available for our July meetings for in-person. For the July meetings that are not going to be located in either the in county facilities, we want to get closer to the community and meet in more community accessible buildings. What we will be trying to accomplish for the meetings coming in July and July 9th. So those will be more in-person meetings. And I know it says accessible by Zoom, but in our discussion, we're talking about the importance of really being able to get in and do some actual map drawing and helping folks with the tools. So it'll be similar to this presentation, but it'll be more focused on in-person, back and forth conversations about how you actually draw the maps, more discussion on the detail about, you can actually show us on a map what your community is, what your communities of interest are. So they will be more in-person focused, and we will have them recorded. We may be recording through Zoom, but it will be less interaction through Zoom. So it may not be an interactive Zoom for those who need to, who want to Zoom in live. Zoom may not even be a possibility for those depending on the internet accessibility, but we want you to make sure that if you can come in person to come to those meetings, watch for this website and we will have those meeting dates up for you. And then Commissioner Adams, you're going to like this. We actually separated out the draw map and view draft map, so there's no confusion on the drop-down menus. And all the tools will be populated to show where you can get to all the tools to draw maps. These links will be activated as soon as the tools are available. When the draft maps are available, we do them here, and then we have some FAQs, additional resources, a place for you to subscribe, and a place for you to contact us with any questions. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Phillips to show you Story Map.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. And I'm happy to announce that the latest version of the story map is now live, and it's much more condensed and hopefully user-friendly. And so I'm going to walk you through that a little bit here. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But what you should see on the screen here is the story map, the first few pages thereof. And so it starts out by talking about census areas and all the data that are associated with that. And so we have the different census geographies that are depicted here. Of particular interest to our task are these entities called census places, because the ordinance and redistricting law requires that these places be kept intact to the extent practicable. And so all of the areas in gray are considered places. And if you click on this button, you will be able to highlight which ones are the incorporated cities. And the remaining gray areas are the ones that are called census designated places, or CDPs, which are unincorporated towns or villages. There's also an American Indian area. So if you click on this button, it will zoom in on the Santa Ynez Reservation, home to the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. I showed you this last meeting, so I'll skip over here, but you can see where the various zip codes are in the county if you want to consider that as a potential community of interest, each one of those. You have citizen voting age population by race or ethnicity. And if you have each of the racial or ethnic categories that we use as different buttons. And so if you click on % Latino, it will zoom in on Santa Maria and Guadalupe, just because that's a particularly high concentration of that group. But you have the ability to drag and look at other areas as well, such as Lompoc or Santa Ynez Valley and the Santa Barbara area. If you click on the % Asian button, it zooms in on this area because this is the only area of the county where there's a particularly high, if you even want to call it high, concentration of Asian eligible voters. And it's particularly in the UCSB Isla Vista area. % Black takes you over here, but again, it's not much. If just to remind you what the colors signify, it's those warmer colors where you have higher percentages. And so if you don't see if you don't see a lot of those, that means that we don't have a lot of those voters concentrated really anywhere in the county. % White, in this case, you do see a good amount of those warmer colors, those reds, those greens, those yellows, and not just here, but in other parts of the county. And finally, % Total Minority combines all of the ones that aren't white, Latino, Asian, Black, etc., and gives you the total for that. You have other demographics of interest. So this is the same procedure. If you want to look at certain demographics like % speak Spanish at home, % high school graduates, etc., you just click on any of these buttons. It doesn't zoom in on a particular area though. It just shows you the whole county. The reason it zooms in with the CVAP data is because that is by blocks. And so it's very fine resolution. You can see here, these are by block groups. So you don't have the granularity that you do with the CVAP data, which is why it kind of needs to be zoomed in order to really see what's going on. So that is kind of the rundown for the census data. Now, there's all sorts of local districts in areas as well. And you have a bunch of special districts and other functional areas. In this case, you have the school districts, which are elementary. You have elementary school districts, high school districts, and unified school districts. So if you click on that, you can see which ones are just the high school districts. You have school attendance areas, which might be relevant communities of interest. For example, you can see the high school attendance areas, and they're colored by district. So these are all the SB Unified high schools, and these are the Santa Maria Joint Unified. Voting districts, this is obviously important to our task, of course, but these districts are based on 2010 data. So these are all going to be redistricted, just like the county board of supervisors districts. And you can see those districts here. But the county is also split into 2 state assembly districts. There's Board of Education trustee areas with the white boundaries. And then 3 of the cities have their own city council districts, such as Lompoc. And you can see the breakdown there. I do have this page, I call it degree of overlap between different types of boundaries. And so I take boundaries from these 6 different types of areas and see where there might be overlap, like where a certain line is shared as a boundary in different types of areas. So the darker the color, that means it's shared by more types of areas. So if you zoom in here, you can see that this is a pretty dark boundary because it's a boundary of a city, and it's a boundary of a school district, and it's a boundary of a special district. So just for information's sake, you might want to see where there is these common boundaries if you're looking for a good place to draw a boundary for a supervisorial district. And finally, we have land use and zoning, which shows the different land use and zoning categories. You can get those, you can see those categories, what the colors signify by looking here, or you could click on this legend button, and you can see that there are 10 broad land use categories, from commercial, industrial, residential, etc. So if you were to go to Santa Maria Valley, it would take you there, and you can see the parts of the valley where there's low density residential, commercial. You can see where it's higher density residential, which might be a different community of interest from the other types of land use. And finally, you have zoning, which is a little different from land use. It's more about how the land is intended to be used. But you have all 8 cities of the county have their own different zoning schemes. And if you wanted to click on one of these, it will take you to that city, and you can see in this case for Goleta, their zoning designations, as well as they have sub areas of the city that they recognize, like Northwest residential area, Northeast residential area, Old Town. And so you could consider these as potential communities of interest as well. And lastly, there is the link to the interactive map. Ms. Tilton showed you the version for Sacramento County, but the one for Santa Barbara County is active and live. We may update it so that it has the same look and feel as the one for Sacramento County. But if you click on this, it should take you to the place where you can consider all this data, and you can look at different types of data at the same time. In the story map, you don't have that ability because the story map highlights a certain set of data, like school districts or voting districts. You can't look at those side by side in the story map on the same map. However, in the interactive map, you can. You just have to scroll and find the right area you're looking for. So say you want to look at water districts and compare that to the school districts, such as the elementary school attendance areas. And so you can see those overlapped onto each other. And then you can compare that with the voting districts. There's a lot of data here, so you have to scroll carefully to find what you're looking for. But say you want to compare it to the Board of Supervisors districts, you can see how they overlap and compare to one another. So let's compare high school attendance areas to the Board of Supervisors districts. We'll get rid of water districts. And you can use the zoom in and zoom out arrows to see how they compare. So you see that let's go to this section here. You see that Carpinteria High School's attendance area is completely within Supervisor District 1. And the attendance area for Santa Barbara High School is mostly in District 1 as well. So you had to be careful about how each is being symbolized. And so you look at the legend at the bottom left here and see that the supervisor districts are by color, and the high school attendance areas are also by color, but they're different colors and they have black outlines. And so you can see that the Santa Barbara High School attendance area looks like this, and it's mostly in Supervisorial District 1, but it does include some parts of Supervisorial District 2. So that is a sample of all the possibilities. I mean, there's hundreds of possibilities of different combinations you can look at here. So I'll end it there, and happy to take any questions and hope you find it useful.
And Chair Morris, that concludes our presentation from NDC. If you want to, we can answer questions, as Dr. Phillips said now, or open it up for discussion.
Yep. So let's just start with any questions from the commissioners. Anything that you wanted to clarify or highlight out of the presentation? Ms. Trotsky.
Good morning. Yes, I was wondering if we could make the current existing supervisor districts more readily available. So if I get it right, we have to go to the GIS map to find what the existing lines are. Is it available anywhere else?
We can provide a PDF of the existing. Is that what you're looking for? We can also, it's
Like, if someone was going to draw santabarbaracounty.org, there's great information, but it isn't readily available what's existing.
okay.
I will point out that the supervisorial districts are linked under the FAQs, but we can definitely make that more available on the homepage.
Great. Mr. Bradley.
Good morning. I got to get through my list here. First thing is the public participation map paper tool that you showed us at the beginning. That looked really helpful. And I wondered if that's available in Spanish.
Yes, it will be available in Spanish.
Oh, great. Okay. Also, could we please, here, I'll put it in the chat box. Let's change all occurrences of VAFB to VSFB, since that recently the Air Force Base was decommissioned and now it's a Space Force Base. So we just want to make sure that it's up to date.
Yeah, Commissioner Bray gave us that information too, and we are working on it. So we have that on our list to change over. Thank you.
Also on the tool where you had the filter demographics of interest, is it possible, I don't know if data is granularized for that, but would it be possible to see where people live based on how they, what part of the workforce they're in, agriculture, light manufacturing, service industry, corporate, what have you? Is it possible to see that as well?
I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if Dr. Johnson's on. He may know the answer. Let's find out the answer. If we're able, you're wanting to show some thematic maps for occupation, or
Yes.
have it incorporated maps.
Yeah, would it be possible to put an overlay? For example, if we want to know where most of the agricultural workers are located in our county, will it be possible to find that out? I mean, we can put things like income down, but we can't always assume that some income is directly associated with any particular work. So I wonder if we can granularize by workforce sector, if that's possible as well. It seems like that's an important community of interest.
I don't know that answer, but I will find out an answer for you.
Yeah, Commissioner Bradley, I also serve on the Workforce Development Board, and there is some data there, but I'd be surprised if it got down to anything more granular than city limits, but it's worth looking into.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
I may offer, it's not exactly the same, but we do have on the story map, one of the, and I can share my screen with you, one of the demographics of potential interest is percent high school graduates. And so it's not the same, but it could be very correlated with the amount of people who are in the agricultural sector. And you can especially see that in the central parts of Santa Maria and Guadalupe.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, let's open this up to the folks that are with us in the audience. Doesn't look like we have a huge number of folks, so I don't think we'll be quite as strict on the 3-minute timeline this morning. And we'll just kind of use this as an opportunity to gather some information. So for those of you who are attendees in this meeting, if you have comments, thoughts, input that you'd like to provide around communities of interest or mapping criteria, we'd love to hear it. So if you'll use the raise your hand button, we'll call on you. Ms. Tilton will kind of lead us through the comments.
Please raise your hand if you want to speak. I'm not seeing any hands raised at this moment. I'm not seeing any hands raised. We hope that those watching later will start to visit the website, submit, describe as your communities of interest, and then once the tools are loaded, start drawing some maps, either of just a single district, your own neighbor, or the entire county.
Okay, we'll also take any do we see a hand?
Yes, we do have a hand raised by Lindsay Baker.
Good morning, Ms. Baker.
Good morning. I'm speaking for myself this morning, and I'm curious about the designation of this meeting. Now, this is a public meeting, right? This is the first time we're really reaching out to the public.
I mean, we've been doing this kind of, our last meeting on Wednesday featured this same presentation and opportunity for input. So, but yes, we're early in that outreach process.
So my question is, what outreach was specifically done for today's meeting? Because I reviewed the Independent, I don't see anything. I looked on the county, my emails from the county, I don't see anything. So where was the public outreach for this meeting?
Claire, are you available to answer some of the outreach efforts? I know there have been press releases that go out. Unfortunately, we can't control what they choose to advertise. There was notification in the newspapers that reached all areas, and I know that was on Facebook. I know it was on the county site and our social media.
Yes,
Claire,
that's correct. There was a press release that was picked up by the Independent as well as some other news, local news organizations, as well as on social media for both Wednesday and today's meetings.
Ms. Tilton, there was an article in the Santa Maria Times, June 16th, entitled Redistricting Commission Sets First Public Hearing. So that did run in the Santa Maria Times on June 16th.
And we certainly encourage any suggestions for further outreach. We're open to all.
Yeah, Ms. Trotsky. Cheryl, you're muted. Now you got to go back and remember what you just said.
Am I good?
You are.
Okay. Early on, I subscribed to on the county website to get notifications for the redistricting, and I wasn't noticed on this meeting either through my subscription. And I also want to encourage Claire, maybe she could check the times too, because I think one of the meetings I was noticed, it was at 7 o'clock when it was 6 o'clock for last week.
Good point. We'll circle back with the county because I think they run that side of it. So we'll need to make sure they've got the most up-to-date information. Miss Turley.
Yeah, and Claire, also, if we can, for Facebook and Instagram, promote these meetings the day of with a story, just the same post that we use for the actual meeting notification. If we can just reshare that into a story, that's great because it gets on people's feeds. We should also include in any of the agendas our Facebook link as well as our Instagram handle. And then maybe we can talk about also paying for advertisements and things like Ed Hat. But yeah, I didn't get notified and I'm subscribed as well, Cheryl. So that needs to be better.
Good to know. Appreciate everybody highlighting that. We want to make sure that we are getting that word out, particularly as we get into the July and August sessions when we're, as Ms. Tilton described, for those sessions that are not our business meetings, the goal is to really make them very interactive, right? And tabletop exercises will have people there that can, help people on their laptops or with the paper forms, and actually start drawing tentative maps that may need to be trued up once we get the final data, but it certainly gets us started with understanding where people think, which pieces of the county need to be linked together and where we can begin to draw some lines. So the more we can get out to those sessions, particularly those workshop sessions, I think the better. So, okay. We'll also, I guess we'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting and which leaves us just with general public comments. Well, if there are members of the public that have comments related to any other issues related to the commission, we'd take those now. And if there are no comments to be submitted, we will, I think that's about it, unless any of the commissioners have any general comments or go to the order items that you'd like to bring up. Just would remind everybody again, our meeting on the 7th will be in person in the County Planning Commission room in downtown Santa Barbara. That will be a business meeting as well as another opportunity similar to what we have been doing to allow people time to start sharing some of this input. So watch for that. Ms. Trotsky.
I have one more question about the July 7th meeting. Will all of the communities of interest that have been identified on the outreach list be contacted about that meeting, or how are we noticing District 1?
Claire, are you able to speak to that?
Yes, we will be adding them. All of the ones that have been identified, their contact information have been added to our outreach list that we help send our press releases and notifications to.
Yeah, and Claire, I think the point that Ms. Trotsky is making, and I think it's a good one, is we have designated certain meetings to have a focus on a particular district. We need to highlight that, right, in the communication. I don't know whether our notification list can be segmented, to the point of being able to send a separate message to say, hey, this one's for you. But we probably ought to highlight that, tonight we want to really focus on district whatever. As we discussed at the last meeting, we're not going to preclude people from talking about neighboring districts or, districts at the far end of the county, but we do want to prioritize input kind of district by district as we go through. And in part, that's also kind of how the ordinance directed us to do it. So anything in that communication that we can kind of lift up that notification and make sure that people know, tonight's my night to come and, focus on District 1 or District 3 or wherever we are. Cheryl.
One more question on that regard. For Karen and I who are in District 1, what is the best way? Well, first, I'd like to know who Claire is contacting on that outreach list so that Karen and I can know who's being contacted. And if there's anyone additional to that we could maybe let Claire know needs to be contacted. But then in terms of Karen Twyble and myself, what kind of outreach are we allowed to be doing in our district, and and is that an ex parte communication?
Andrea, do you want to speak to that? If there are limitations in to whom they can reach out, or can they reach out and not worry just to get information out?
You are two independent, though with shared interest, two independent members, and that's precisely what you're supposed to do. Whether it's any of your organizations that you work with, the schools, the churches, the temples, whatever is available to you to encourage people to watch the website, to come to the meeting. And yes, you are ex parte, you're working, but ex parte is not a bad thing. It's just telling the world that you're reaching out and that you've gone to these organizations or you've talked to these people. And that's just another way of explaining to the whole community that we need them here and we want them here. And these are the dates and these are the places and these are the times. And you can come to any of the meetings, but it just so happens this date is for District 1.
And all of the commissioners, I think, ought to feel empowered at this point to, arrange for presentations, whether somebody reaches out and invites you to come and speak to their group, or you want to be proactive and go set that up. My good friend there, Commissioner Bray, has already got the two of us lined up to do a Rotary Club in about a week. So maybe a week and a half, right, Jim? So, there's nothing, that's a good thing. And we've now watched Shalise do that presentation twice through. We've all got access to that PowerPoint. Hit the road. Make sure you report it. And frankly, I would suggest sending the staff a note when you book it so that they can track where we're at and where we're going. I think as they get requests, they're going to try to figure out, who's close and available and can go do those kind of presentations. So hopefully we're seeing much more of that going on here, in the coming weeks, right? And maybe Shalise, you want to talk a little bit about this. What we probably don't want to get into in those is, taking testimony from the audience, right? I think in those kind of public presentations, the goal is to, educate, inform, and point them to the website or the next public meeting, right?
It's very helpful if they have, if they can describe their community's great boundaries, if they can submit that to us either by email or by the comment feature on the website. There's a fill-inable form that'll send an email to us, or draw it out on a map and send it to us. Take a picture of it, send it to us. So yeah, if you could get them to write it down, that's the best, because then we have it for the record and we can refer back to it.
And unless more than half of us are going to be at the same place, it's pretty easy to do.
I do have a member of the public who has raised their hand since close the public hearing, but it's
we'll take it as public comment.
General public. Okay, Grace W. looks like.
Morning, Grace. If you can unmute, we can take you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. I have a question for Chair Morris, and I know it may sound simple or to you, but I'm not sure. You mentioned that July 7th was a business meeting. Is that business for commissioners, or can business owners go and come? Or can you clarify what business meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. That's a good clarification. When I reference business meeting, it means that we'll have a more traditional business agenda for the commission. We'll be conducting business of the commission, as opposed to doing just a input session only. So it's open to anyone in the public that wants to attend as well. It will just have more of our busy work, if you will, on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
This workshop focused on communities of interest will be the first thing on the agenda. So if you don't want to stay for the business portion, you don't need to.
Okay, thank you.
You know, it may be helpful too. I like it when Ms. Tilton says workshop. I think that communicates the hands-on that we're hoping for from the public. And so perhaps as we go forward, we emphasize a workshop, even though there is some business being conducted.
Yep, I like that. Okay. Last chance, commissioners, anything good to the order? Anything you want to make sure gets on staff's list or notice for some a future meeting? All right, get out there and get that lawn mowed. Have a good Saturday, everybody.
Happy Father's Day, all.
Indeed.
Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth today.